So this story does not involve me too much, but I know quite a lot about my entitled cousin's actions and behavior through stories family members and my cousin's husband has told me. Ever since we were little kids, my cousin, GC, good cousin, and I have been best buds. We lived only a few miles away from one another, so we would bike to each other's houses, play in our backyards, and play video games. My cousin comes from an extremely wealthy family. Her dad, my uncle, started a business when he was 20, and it has been super successful to the point there are now several large locations across the globe. Even though this family is crazy rich, they live a very modest lifestyle. They live in a small, 2-story home on a few acres of land, nothing crazy extravagant. The one lavish thing they do is that every 2 or 3 years they go on a cruise. My cousin is one of 3 children. She has an older brother and her identical twin sister, who we will call entitled cousin. You may think the good twin ever twin scenario is only seen on the TV screen, but my cousin and EC are the real-world equivalent. One is kind and generous, while the other is selfish and entitled. EC always had this idea in her head that, because her dad was so wealthy, she didn't have to lift a finger in life to get what she wanted. Good things just came to her, and she'd always rely on daddy's money. Despite getting pretty much everything they wanted growing up, my cousin and her brother never had entitled attitudes. EC was always the evil standout of the family. EC's attitude only got worse as time went on. Eventually, EC got married and had a kid, a boy. Her husband is just as nasty as she is, so they're kind of made for each other. EC always wanted to rub her child in GC's face, like she wanted to gloat about having a kid before she did. GC had a story of bad relationships, and one time she came to her sister for advice after her boyfriend had left her. EC had the nerve to blame her weight and not using makeup to make herself look more attractive. GC was afraid to date anyone after the last relationship disaster, but that changed when she finally met the man of her dreams, who we will call GH, good husband. I met him personally, and he's a giant teddy bear of a guy. 2 years after they met, they are both engaged. The entire family was thrilled that GC finally got the man of her dreams, and her father wanted to throw a boatload of money to help her pay for a beautiful wedding. For reference, the father did the same thing for EC when she got married. Yet the EC was not happy about how extravagant her sister's wedding was going to be. GC wanted to be married at Niagara Falls and wanted to invite basically everyone she knew, and her father was going to pay for pretty much all of it. EC was furious. She talked to their father about the wedding and how all the money being spent better not interfere with the family's upcoming cruise, and yes, they still went on cruises together every few years despite the children being grown and having families of their own. Their father said that because of the wedding overlapping the dates of the cruise, the family cruise would have to be pushed to next year. EC practically exploded. She blamed my cousin for taking the cruise away from her and her precious boy, who was 5 at this point. She said she already told her son how they're going on a cruise and how now he's going to be so upset now because his selfish aunt wanted to get married instead of giving him a happy vacation. She demanded GC reschedule the wedding for next year so they could go on a cruise instead. GC, who is normally not a confrontational person, had it with her sister's attitude and told her if she wanted to go on a cruise, then she should go alone, and she would have to pay for it herself. Izzy's raging went on for weeks, flipping back and forth between blaming her sister for ruining her son's ear and begging her father for money to go on a cruise because she and her family deserved it. She drove good cousin to tears, and she ended up calling me for advice. My only advice to her was to give EC, who normally gets everything, nothing, and by nothing, I mean don't invite her to the wedding. Like most sisters would do, GC wanted EC to be one of her bridesmaids, as she was the bridesmaid at EC's wedding. Not inviting her would be a major upset for everyone involved, but it just may be the best thing to teach EC a lesson. So she did just that. GC called up her sister and flat out told her that if she didn't change her attitude, she's not invited to the wedding. Again, EC blew up shouting at GC, calling her all sorts of names and again blaming her for the cruise being cancelled. GC hung up and decided to not invite her to the wedding. The wedding was amazing, and I ended up being the bridesmaid to take Izzy's place. It's been a few years now, and GC and GH have a beautiful little girl and have a baby boy on the way. EC is still in their lives and is as nasty as ever, but she doesn't come to her father begging for anything anymore, because after her behavior towards him and good cousin, he threatened to leave her out of the will if she continued to pester either of them. Maybe now that she's not gonna get everything handed to her on a silver platter, she will change her attitude for the better. Or at least that's what we all wish to happen. I need to get this off my chest. As some of you may know, I'm a capybara farmer, and recently, due to the viral trend around these amazing creatures, my peaceful capybara farm has turned into a hot spot for self-entitled content creators looking for their next big viral video. They've trespassed, they've stolen, they've subjected my capybaras to stressful, inappropriate behaviors. I'm deeply disturbed by their lack of respect and total disregard for the well-being of my animals, not to mention the breach of my privacy and property rights. But things escalated beyond belief. Just last week, one of these trespassers, a man looking for some adrenaline-filled footage, decided it would be a great idea to wet seal a capybara. Not only is this incredibly distressing for the animal, it's also dangerous. And surprise, surprise, the man ended up seriously injuring, losing part of his genitals. This man, the one who trespassed and harassed my animals, is suing me. Apparently, he thinks I'm responsible for damage to his reproductive organs that occurred while he was illegally on my property and distressing my animals. A few days ago, I woke up to find my capybaras all huddled together in one corner of a farm, clearly terrified. Upon investigating, I found a person dressed in a handmade capybara costume, trying to live amongst them for 24 hours living as a capybara's challenge. It's clear there is some thought of sexual element. Not only had they trespassed onto my property in the dead of night, but they're also equipped with various props and toys they thought capybaras played with. A beach ball and a squeaky toy, amongst other less tasteful things. They're actively trying to coerce my capybaras into engaging with these objects, toys, for their video, causing immense stress to the animals. When I confronted them, their response was shocking. They argued that they were doing the capybaras a favor by making them famous. They truly saw nothing wrong with their actions. I had to call the authorities to have them removed from my property. The disrespect for private property, the welfare of animals, and basic human decency has been simply mind-boggling. So for some background, I live in Thousand, California, very close to the beach. Needless to say that I encounter a lot of locals and tourists. On the right side of my property, across the streets, there is shops, a cafe, and a bus stop. Now on my property, I have a holy berry bush, which are poisonous. Now they taste like cherries and have a cinnamon-like aftertaste, so a person that doesn't know about the plant would have no idea about this. The side effects of these berries are nausea, disorientation, diarrhea, vomiting, and severe stomach cramps. Due to my house being on the historic registry and nature protection laws, I can't just remove the bush because some of the birds pick at it and eat from it. I know that the berries and the leaves aren't poisonous to some species of birds and other animals like certain squirrels and chipmunks. Anyway, because of this, I have 2 signs that say "Do not eat" and "Danger." That fact that I have a sign with "Danger" with a hazard skull and bones sent people, except for this persistent mom and boy last morning. So it's around 10:30 a.m. and I take my trash out. The mom, who looked about 40, had 2 kids with her, a teen around 14 to 16 maybe, and a little boy who looked 6 to 8 years old. The mom and the boy are the entitled, stupid ones here. The teen girl was actually nice. The boy says, "Mom, look, berries." "Wow, I didn't realize berries grew here. Let's get some." I asked her to read the sign and say "Don't eat them." She scoffs and says, "It's not like you need all these berries. You probably put up the sign so people don't eat them. You are greedy." "Mom, when are we going to have the berries?" "Right now." The teen girl chimes in and says, "No, Mom, I think they're poisoned." The mom and son broke a branch off the berry bush. They started running and scampering down the berries and went to the bus stop across the street, with the teen girl reluctantly following. I was yelling to get her attention for nearly 20 minutes. But after the mom and boy started getting awfully sweaty and acting weird, the teen came back to talk to me. "Those berries are poisonous. I tried to warn your mother and brother, but it's too late." I comforted her saying that they will leave, but they're going to be just very, very sick. Soon I went to my house to get Celta tablets and water bottles to help. But the time I came back, both the mom and son finished all the berries and the boy threw up all over his shirts. The mom came back with obvious signs of throwing up herself and to yell at me when I pointed to the sign that said "Danger" and "Do not eat," and that this was her fault. She slipped the birds and left, and the teen just said, "Sorry." I gave her the Celta tablets and went into the cafe to get paper towels to clean up her brother, but by the time she came back, the mom vomited too. They all got on the bus, and I haven't seen them since. I'm just chilling at home, minding my own business, and enjoying a bit of downtime. I may or may not have been enjoying some herbal refreshment, if you catch my drift. Certainly, I noticed my neighbor's kid strolling into my house like they owned the place. Now, in my slightly altered state, I didn't react as quickly as I should have. I mean, who expects a random kid to waltz into their humble adult, right? So, this little adventurer has free rein to explore my house for a while. Meanwhile, I'm blissfully unaware of the brewing trouble. But here is where things get wild. Remember how I mentioned having a pet anaconda? Yeah, I have one of these readery buddies as my sidekick. It's all cool, though, because I've got a secure enclosure for it, clearly marked and everything. Or so I thought. Lo and behold, this mini Indiana Jones manages to stumble upon my anaconda's crib. And let's just say the kid had the audacity to use my siphon as a neck accessory. Yikes! Now, you'd think a kid would know better, but hey, they were probably just curious and didn't fully grasp the "don't put snakes around your neck" memo. Enter the entitled neighbor, storming into my house like a hurricane of entitlement. He bruised my anaconda's ribs in the process of separating him from his curtain primer, mind you. He was all up in my face, blaming me for not keeping my anaconda on a leash or something. I tried to explain that his precious offspring had wandered in without an invite, but he was too busy playing the blame game to listen. And guess what? The entitled neighbor, fueled by a potent mixture of self-righteousness and obviousness, has decided to sue me. They're actually trying to pin the whole snake necklace incident on me. Can you believe the audacity? I sure can't. TLDR, my neighbor's kid goes on an unsolicited house tour while I'm enjoying a little herbal relaxation. They stumble upon my pet anaconda and use it as a fashion accessory, but I rescue them from their questionable fashion choices. The entitled neighbor blames me, sues me, and now I need your help to deal with this madness. Stay groovy, Reddit fun. Okay, so a little bit of background. Where I live there is a car show held in memory of someone in our town who died of brain cancer, and all the proceeds go to cancer research. The show is held at the raceway nearby, where everyone is welcoming. Now the story. I had entered my car into the car show and paid extra for it to go around the track during the time event. The car show part was a few hours before the warm-up and the time trials, where anyone entering could do up to 3 practice laps and to get used to the course. Now this is where the child came in. Before the practice lap start, the kid said he liked my car, 1977 Leyland Mini, and started asking me about it and how I got it. All was normal. My family who was with me said I should let him sit in it, and I agreed, but thought I could take it a step farther and let the kid sit in the passenger seat during one of my warm-up laps. I said to him that I would let him go around the track with me on account that I have his parents' permission. When he heard that, his face lit up and he went to go get his parents. I thought all was normal until this happened. I was waiting around for the kid and his parents to show up. I hadn't moved from my spot and was doing some rechecks on my car before I went out. 20 minutes had passed and I thought it was taking a little long for him to come back to give me an answer, but I thought I would wait a little longer just in case he's lost. Next thing I know, another 20 minutes had passed. Then another 20 minutes. I had waited an hour for him to show back up, and I needed to get on the track. My car was ready an hour ago, and I had already gotten permission from the race organizers to have a young passenger for one lap of the practice run. I had gotten tired and went to start the car when the kid showed up with his parents. They instantly asked me if I was up to something. I told them I just wanted to give the kid a chance to see what it was like in a road race car, just like how someone else let me when I was his age. After hearing that, they took a few steps back and started talking. Tired of waiting, I told them it was final with call. It's either a yes or no, and I need to get on track now. They finally gave him permission. I had him get in and put the 5-point on, and we headed for the first practice run. I told him to hold on and don't scream while I'm driving. He seemed to understand, but during the lap, he did the exact opposite. Once it was over, I had a headache and was still trying to be nice, and I asked him if he had fun. He said he did, and he wanted to go again. I said from now on, I had to be by myself, and he started yelling at me and got out of the car, slamming my door behind me. I had had it at that point and just went to do my last 2 laps. Once they were over, we stopped for a quick break, and this is where everything went down. First up, I had the parents come up to me and yell at me for not letting their kid go again, and explain to them that I technically wasn't allowed to and only got permission to do 1 lap with him. They're livid. The next thing I know, one of the organizers said to them that their kid could go around the track in one of the rental track cars with his father, but it would cost $300. The EK said no, and that he wanted to go around in my car, but I said that he couldn't. Next thing I know is the father is yelling at me. I had lost it at that point and told them to leave, but the organizers said what they said was fine and we don't need to make this work. I left with the organizer after to avoid more of a confrontation. Skip forward half an hour and the time trial is about to start, and guess who came back? The mother did. She said she was sorry and wanted to talk. She then said, I will give you $400. She was offering $400 for my entire car. I told her no and to get out of here. Next thing I know is the dad comes up and says $700 for the car. I said no, and the car is not for sale, especially at that price. The father responded saying that my sad, rusted piece of junk is not worth more than $1,000 and that I would get more from crashing it than selling it. I just left. I hopped in my car and drove right past them. Once the time trial was over, I went to park in my spot and to find my girlfriend and grandfather being talked to by some cops while the couple were pointing at me. 2 officers came over and told me to get out of the vehicle. I did so and asked what was going on. The couple actually called the cops, claiming I stole their car and had creepy intentions when I had their precious boy in the car. I told the cops that the car was in my name and I have the footage inside from the camera in my car that I used for studying my driving techniques. They asked to see the footage and I willingly showed them. In the end, I did not do anything wrong and had proof of purchase for my car. I hadn't heard anything from them, but now one of the officers from the incident became a good friend who I go drag racing with, so at least something good came out of this.